up and down the strip. I used to do all 3 contests on Saturday. That was great. Yeah, being done with the draft, running out, grabbing a cab, and to another hotel. And yeah,
I was gonna say, did you have someone with Gatorade like on the side of the road on the strip?
No. I wasn't running it, trust me. But it was. It got a little hectic. And Saturdays, there's some big drafts. I do the platinum for the NFFC. And one of the reasons I did FFPC on Saturday as well, they did their High Society, which is a 10K buy-in then. And it was just, I'm running from a 10K to a 20K and being all out of sorts. That's not the way you want to be. You want to be calm and having a good time. And I just decided to cut that crap out and stick to a hotel a day. And it's worked better the last couple of times I've been out there. So
yeah, I think that definitely makes a difference.
You guys good to go?
Yep, go for it.
Bogey.
I'm good to go. I turned off every device now.
Goat District, the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offers the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? Welcome back to the GOAT District. Dan, Theo, I missed you guys. I was off for a bit under the weather, but we're back. It's week 4. We have a huge show tonight, guys. If you're new to the channel, smash the like, smash the subscribe. If you're not, these two studs, they join me on the weekly to drop tons of goodness on top of the amazing guests that we've been bringing in. And Dan, tonight is no different. How you doing, brother?
Doing great. It's nice to have you back on, JD. It was a little bit different not having you in there, and realize how much I miss just having you kind of control the pace of the show and everything else. So I'm looking forward to just kind of being able to sit back and do my thing and let you figure out who's talking next and all that good stuff.
Theo, I figured I'd walk away for a bit just so you guys remember that I do bring, a little bit of value to the show. How you doing, brother?
Absolutely. It's good to have you off the short-term IR and back in the district. And I missed you, and we're happy to get going.
Nice. Yeah. Tonight is again, man. I feel like we say it every show, but we got to give props. I mean, Dan, Theo's been bringing tons of goodness. You've been chipping in as well with the names. I've been hanging back because I don't want to mess up Theo's flow. Tonight, Theo, you're bringing in another high stake monster. I mean, these guys aren't willing to share secrets anywhere. You got this man tonight. Tell the people who we're bringing in.
So tonight's guest is Glenn Lowy. And if you play FFPC or NFFC, then you know who he is. He's one of the most respected high stakes players going. He's all time in the NFFC. Money earned. He's finished second overall, I believe, in an FFPC main event. And he's won just about every league you can in the NFFC. We participate in the New York Super League together. And it's probably the hardest league on the East Coast. No exaggeration. There's some of the best players in that league. And Glenn has won that league 3 out of the last 5 years. So I have a great deal of respect for him, and I'm happy he's on the GOAT District.
Thanks, Thea.
Glenn, Theo is so excited about tonight. Even his internet is stuttering right now. But I'm sure when you walk into a draft room, I mean, I would just walk in with this soundtrack. Like every season, just walk back in the same league with that in the background. But no, man, we're pumped to have you on tonight. And guys, please be patient with Theo. He's having some connection issues. But as you guys know, the value that he brings to the show is, I think, worth the the bit of call it entertaining. Make it a little exciting for you guys. If it gets a little too sketchy, as you guys can see, he'll jump in and out. But no, Glenn, we're pumped to have you on tonight. I mean, we're at the crucial point now where you're 1-2, you're 2-1, you're 3-0, 0-3. And you, my friend, how many leagues did you say you had? I was getting anxiety just listening to you talk there, especially during waiver wire.
Well, it's approaching 70. It's a little bit more than I thought I was doing. You get towards the end of the draft season and you jumping in leagues the last minute sometimes, and you got an open night that you're planning on just relaxing, and then a league comes up, you jump in. But it turns out I'm approaching 70, so it's a little bit more than I typically do. But I'm up for the challenge, and we'll see how it comes out and plays out.
Yeah, this is kind of my favorite time of year too, because you're just starting to really kind of figure out what you've got for a team, and across 70 teams, I'm sure you've got some monsters and you've got some teams that probably need some work, but it's now we've at least got a decent enough sample size that we can start to see a little bit of trends and figure out which way offenses are maybe going and stuff like that. So I really look forward to kind of this week 3, 4, 5, where we kind of figure out what's going on with our teams.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is the time of the season where, I mean, week 1, everybody, feels really good or really bad, but it's way too early. I think week 2 also. Week 3, you have an idea. You know if you need to make up ground. Some teams are starting to pull away. Hopefully, it's your own team, but the gaps are starting to get there, and it's a short season, the NFL season. FFPC, for instance, is 12 weeks. Used to be 11 weeks. 3 weeks, that's a quarter of the season done. So if you're struggling out of the gate, it's time to make your move. It's time to maybe get rid of some future plays and play for now, because you have to win now. But if you got a little bit of a lead, then maybe you've got a cushion. You can play some lottery tickets and take a few more chances because you have that cushion, and you can survive a loss. Obviously 3-0, 3-1 isn't that bad. 0-4, that's a problem. So it gives you an idea of how to move forward on each league as well.
Guys, before we get into kind of, the week 4 and we're touching on something I think that's important. Is there something, Glenn and Dan and Theo, I want you guys to jump in after Glenn does. Like, is there something other than your record that you're looking at? You hear people, and obviously that's something I'll look at is like your points for, points against. On your rosters, your 0-3 teams are, is there something there that's telling you I still have a chance, or like what are things that you're looking at on your rosters that's helping you make that decision after 3 weeks?
Well, you want your players to be ramping in the right direction. That's for sure. If you've started with some players that, we briefly spoke earlier about, some of the players I drafted, I knew were going to struggle early on in the season. After the Thursday night game, everybody treated Zeke like kryptonite, and he dropped from a mid first rounder at the latest, maybe sometimes slightly back end of the first round, but that would be the latest he'd ever go. He was lasting in some drafts I saw to the 3rd round. That's way too much of an overreaction for 1 week for any player in my mind. So, anytime he was available in the 2nd round, I thought I was grabbing him in the 1st round in multiple drafts. So if I liked him as a 1st round, I'm certainly going to grab him as a 2nd. And I looked at it as a gift. I knew I was going to struggle that 1st week. I knew I'd have to put somebody else in there. Or suffer with his 3 points or 4 points, whatever he had. He ramped up a little bit second week, did a little better. Not quite what I hoped for. You know, you heard a lot of talk on Twitter about him being washed and such. But then week 3, he gave us a Zeke week, ramped up. So now I'm feeling a lot more confident about him. Odell's another player I have quite a bit of. I didn't really expect him not to play week 1, but he didn't, and he didn't play week 2. But now it's week 3. He played. He looked okay. You know, he's ramping up. He's going in the right direction. Barkley, another guy that I've got on a few teams, going in the right direction. Might not be where I want him to be, but headed in the right direction. When I see that, if a team's struggling or doesn't quite have the record I want early on, I still might feel really good about it because the players that are the foundation of the team are heading in the right direction, and I could run off multiple wins or multiple big point weeks in a row if they keep heading in that direction and give me what I expected when I drafted them.
Yeah, definitely makes a lot of sense. And, every team is different. You got to look at it in the context of the league too. As far as, some leagues, there's 1 or 2 very clear front runners that are starting to separate already. And other leagues are a lot more tightly bunched. And if you're the 0-3 guy in the tightly bunched league, but you're really only about 40, 50 points behind the leader, there's still plenty of time to turn it around. There's, as long as you have decent players going. Now, if you're sitting there with a team with McCaffrey, A.J. Brown, Jerry Jeudy, and Sterling Shepard or something like that.
Don't forget Cam Akers.
Yeah, this may be time to start hitting the panic button a little bit and try to figure out how you're going to get through the next 3 weeks. And just, with a team like that, you're just hoping to not fall any further behind. You're probably not going to gain any ground, but you're just hoping you can survive until you start getting some of your mainline players back. And just, you're hoping to get that waiver wire stud that, puts up 20 points in your lineup, just even for a week, that can help you out. So that's kind of where I'm at on it. What do you think, Theo?
Yeah, so I think Dan's right. I mean, you have to look at your points, your total points. I think that if you maybe had some bad luck in wins and losses, but you're putting up a healthy 150, you can deal with that. I think also weeks 1 and 2, sometimes you make poor start-sit decisions. We don't have as much information. Maybe you left points on your bench, and that might become a guy that you lean on moving forward. So, I think Dan made a great point. Every league is different, but you need to have guys, on the way up. And at this point, you should have some clarity on who your best guys are and your starters. And yeah, I don't think it's necessarily time to hit the panic button, but if you're in a real hole, then you need to start looking at some, aggressive strategies. Maybe you start stacking a little more, try to make up some ground in those weeks that you can. But generally points is the best way I gauge my teams. If I'm 3-0, but I'm, 7th in points, then I might have a paper tiger. If I have a lot of points and I'm 1-2, then I'm feeling all right.
I think a point you made, Theo, was very good in the start-sit decisions in week 1 and 2. I mean, how many? I know I did. Unfortunately, made some bad start-sit decisions, even in week 3. Unfortunately, but how many people sat Brandon Cooks because he was their wide receiver 5? How many people sat Mike Williams because he was their wide receiver 5? And now you would never think of sitting them, no matter where they fit on your team, because they're producing week in, week out. That becomes more clear who those steady players that you have to put in, you start no matter what, by week 3, week 4. Well, week 1, week 2, it's a little more vague.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of my more popular tweets, Glenn, this past week, I will not sit Brandon Cooks, just like over and over, like the Bart Simpson on the blackboard, just because Dan and I own him.
I saw that tweet.
Yeah. And it's one of those, like, Dan, I think 2 guys spook us last year was Hardman. And this year it's like Brandon Cooks, and Cooks is a guy that we both like. That's why we have him. It's just, you have like 3-4 guys ahead of him that you rank higher or whatever for that week, and he's on your bench and he goes off every time, man. And it's painful to manage those,
I mean, 2 weeks ago, everybody was starting Robbie Anderson over Brandon Cooks. Now, no way, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
those things change.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And talking about change, let's go to Chicago. And guys, if you're in the DMs right now, I see you guys watching. If you're in the DMs right now, smash the like, shove your questions in the DM, guys. Drop it, whether it's waiver questions, start, sit. Should I trade this guy? A trade that you're considering, that you've done. Share any goodness with us, guys. We're here to help you guys. Glenn, we're going to go to Chicago. A lot of people had high hopes for Justin Fields. Unfortunately, they didn't get what they expected. I see you kind of reacting right away. So what are your thoughts on the quarterback moving forward? What are your thoughts in that offense? Are there pieces that there's opportunity there for Fantasyland for our audience to jump on, maybe buy some guys while this offense is struggling?
Well, first about Justin Fields, yes, I was shaking my head. I started him over Matt Stafford in the 20,000 buy-in platinum this week. So, I'm feeling that pain. I bought into the hype. He's an exciting player. He's got an exciting skill set, the kind of skill set that can be a league winner if utilized right. He's obviously not quite ready, but I think a lot of that, and I mean, it's been all over, analysis. So a lot of that's on their head coach and their offensive scheme. They did him no favors whatsoever. They put him in position to fail rather than succeed. I see a lot of that. You probably notice I'm a Jets fan, right? So I see a lot of that with the way the Jets are handling Zach Wilson. And, that's part of what we do. That's part of how we analyze players in situations. We've got to look at how players are utilized. And if Justin Fields is going to be utilized like that, he's going to fail, and he's going to take our teams down with it. And along with that, a lot of the players that he plays alongside, Allen Robinson's killing everybody. He's not having a good season. And but a lot of that is, opportunity. Allen Robinson, I used to feel was quarterback proof. I used to feel was scheme proof, but maybe that's not the case. And you've got to give him opportunities, just like Justin Fields. If a quarterback's getting sacked 9 times, and running for his life 9 others, nobody on that offense is going to do well. But again, I think things could be better for Justin Fields if utilized right, and this might be the opportunity to grab someone like Robinson before it turns around. We saw that last week with Zeke.
Yeah.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire, everybody was ready to give up on him. He had a better week. Fantasy football is very reactionary. The last week is everything, and sometimes you got to ignore that and look ahead and see what's going on and what the possibilities are. Allen Robinson still could have a big year. So he's not somebody I'm ready to give up on.
And just to throw in before my co-host here take the steering wheel, you got to look at the nature of these football teams, right? They're approaching each week as a different week, as a new week, and I think we forget that. And if you go in with that kind of in the back of your mind, you might not. The Clyde Edwards is a perfect example, right? And Zeke, they have a bad week. To me, that's a buy. Like Higbee. I said Higbee right now is slick to buy Higbee, especially in tight end premium after the dud in week 2. And then he came out and gave you some good production this week. So, and I said this in week 2, like, don't go too off of a lot of your thoughts coming into the season after like 1 or 2 weeks or even 3 weeks. It's just more opportunity to buy some of these guys. I mean, Chicago's kind of, as we're talking about, Dan, I don't know. What do you think? With Demont, A-Rob, and even Mooney, who was like a hot topic this past week.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think, it's a nice, narrow, usage tree there. You're basically talking about A-Rob, Mooney, Montgomery, and Kmet as being, kind of the main weapons there. So, if they can get their offensive act together, that bodes well. But the problem is they're just, they're flailing around aimlessly on offense, just not playing to the strengths of their players. And when that happens, it's hard to see where it's going to turn. Sooner or later, I think that they have to kind of start getting out of their own way a little bit. They have to start figuring it out on offense, because if they don't, the coach is going to be gone and there's going to be somebody else running that offense who maybe can get something out of it. But, for now, I think there's no way you can start like Darnell Mooney. There's no way you can really start Cole Kmet. Allen Robinson, you're probably going to keep throwing him out there unless you got a lot of better options. And you're probably going to be throwing David Montgomery out there unless you got a lot of better options, which is unlikely. So what do you think, Theo?
It's actually crazy because we had Ben Gretsch on last week, and Dan and I were extremely excited about Justin Fields, just like Glenn was. Dan and I started Justin Fields over Derek Carr on a main event team. I started Justin Fields over, Joe Burrow on an NFC primetime team. I was very excited about this, but I actually think that the way that Nagy approaches the offense, he has no plan at all for Justin Fields. He doesn't maximize him at all. I'm actually hoping that he goes with, Foles this week or Andy Dalton's back, which is insane for me to say because I think both those guys are, below average quarterbacks. But I think that the way the offense is, that's the only way you're going to get anything out of Robinson, anything out of Montgomery, because if you're not going to maximize Fields' abilities and change your offense at all. I mean, they didn't do any design quarterback runs for Fields. It was a complete mess. So I'm somewhat optimistic about Robinson bouncing back, but I don't really trust anything going on with Nagy. They were very, very fortunate in that Cincinnati game that Cincinnati turned the ball over. They should be 0-3 right now, and I think that team is sort of a mess. So I actually have a lot of Robinson, and I have a good amount of Montgomery, so I'm really hoping that they turn it around. But fingers crossed.
Glenn, we do OTC here on the clock. I'm going to throw this real quick before Dan takes us to a different franchise here. Do you prefer Allen Robinson or Brandon Ayuk rest of season?
You know what? I think I like Robinson. I just think he's more proven. He's also has proven to be quarterback proof. San Francisco is a very similar situation. It's got a shaky starting quarterback and a raw young quarterback in the wings waiting to take over. Who knows? Everybody's calling for Lance right now. Who knows if he's ready either? Who knows if I have a little bit more faith in Shanahan though than Nagy.
Just a little.
Yep, can't argue with that. So what about let's talk about Washington real quick. I mean, their defense definitely hasn't done as well as what I think a lot of us were expecting to start the season. Do we think is that a function of the fact that their offense is just struggling right now, and with Heineke running it, they're not really on schedule? Or is there more to it? Are they a little bit of a paper tiger on defense? Do you worry about starting any players against the Washington defense? And what are you doing with the offensive skill players there, Glenn?
Well, the defense, unfortunately, I bought into that hype as well. I've got quite a few shares of Washington's defense. I usually like grabbing a decent defense. When you play as many leagues as I do, streaming defenses is another time suck that you don't always have time for. So if you can manage to get that week in, week out dominant defense on your team, it's not only good for your team scoring, it's good for your ability to manage so many teams. But Washington's defense has not done the job. You know what? I'm going to give them 2 more weeks. They've got a pretty good matchup this week. If they don't do some damage against Atlanta, I think they're playing. We've got troubles. And in 2 weeks they play, I think, KC and then Green Bay, and then a couple weeks later Tampa Bay. If they're not flying, all cylinders by that point, you might as well drop them, because those teams, they're offensive juggernauts, and they'll be great against any defense. So you better have a dominant one if you're going to be playing them against them. So they're on the verge for me. I'm already on the teams I have, I'm starting to look at those streaming possibilities. So I may drop a share or two here and there, but I think I'll hold on to most of them against Atlanta and see, if they can turn it around.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And, one of the things I'm always looking for, and, one of the reasons why Washington was attractive is just because of the fact that, they've got a good defensive line. And, I'm just looking for teams that can really harass the quarterback, because that's where a lot of the good defensive points flow out of naturally. And it just hasn't really worked out so far for Washington. I do think, the offense is kind of putting them in a bind a little bit, and they're not able to, pin their ears back, basically. I mean, they play a lot better, I think, with a lead than they do when they're playing from behind. And so that's a lot of it for me. Game
script. Losing Fitzpatrick was a big loss for them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, to me, if you can stream defenses and you have time, I think that Washington just goes in. They're a streamer. I mean, this week against Atlanta, you might like them, but they're not an unflappable defense. I think back to that Giants game where Darius Slayton got behind that secondary so easily. Sterling Shepard had a nice game. Then you see the Buffalo game and Emmanuel Sanders had his breakout game. They have issues in the secondary, so the pass rush is not quite as good as we thought it would be. The offense is not, grinding the clock like we thought they could, and they are having issues in the secondary. So, to me, they're an okay defense. Then they just go in the long list of streamers, and if you drafted them, it's not a set it and forget it type situation.
Michael Lombardi from the GM Shuffle had me on this early, and he kind of shied me away from stacking these guys, especially in the FFPC, where we're all kind of looking for a little bit of that edge with our defenses. The teams where I didn't already have, like Tampa or the Rams or something like that. Washington was a sneaky one. Right now, the only team giving up more yards per game is Seattle than Washington, right? So, you hope that helps guys like F1, McLaurin, and maybe Gibson. Obviously, Gibson. Man, that long play this week was sexy. But another tweet I threw out there, guys. I hope you went out and bought a bit more Gibson. When he started a little slower, but. Yeah, for me, the Washington thing was, their defenses, guys. They're way more unpredictable than we think. We learn it every year. I remember Jacksonville a few years ago was like everybody taking them in round 10 or whatever it was in drafts, and they're garbage. So for me, and I learned this from Dan actually, kind of solidified it with the kickers. I'll start taking kickers earlier in the draft and defenses for that reason, the unpredictability of the position, and doesn't affect me. With players playing Washington moving forward, they're a below average defense so far.
So do you have a lot of shares of Justin Tucker?
Oh yeah.
6 points.
Oh yeah. You gotta love the 6.5 point field goal.
Even have him in the fifth.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
60 plus, you should get about 25 points for your fantasy team.
I agree.
60 plus, just make it a bonus play. I mean, everybody would love that.
Automatic game winner. I mean, come on.
That's it. You won the week. You won
your fantasy week. That's all there is to it.
That's it.
Yep. I'm on board.
Theo, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, sure. So there's talk today that Marlon Mack has requested a trade. They sat him last week. Is there a landing spot that we see Marlon Mack landing in where he could potentially make an impact? And how does this change anything for you with Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines moving forward? And what's our general take on the Colts at this point?
Well, I'm not a big owner of Jonathan Taylor. I kind of stayed away from him in the first round. I got a couple shares in the second. I was a little nervous about the timeshare, honestly, and I was a little nervous about Wentz, especially when he was hurt. But it turns out he might have been better when he was hurt. I don't think they utilized Taylor to his full potential. And again, we talk about it's talent meeting opportunity, meeting scheme. It's all those factors coming together to make that monster year. And Hines is a big factor in that. I think way more than Mack, obviously. Hines is a pretty potent weapon, and they're going to keep utilizing him. And I kind of like him, not more than Taylor, don't get me wrong, but value-wise, I like Hines better. Now, Mac, who knows what you're getting out of Mac. I would like to see him land in a couple spots. If I had any choice, I would probably choose San Francisco just so Twitter would break completely.
Oh, don't do that. Don't do that one, Glenn.
The Sermon guys fighting the Mitchell guys, and you throw Mac into the mix, that would be a little fun. But there's a lot of running back rooms that could use some help. There's the typical suspects. You got Miami and Atlanta that everybody talks about all the time. New England's got some issues now. I mentioned San Francisco, the Rams. There's a lot of teams that could use the Mac of a couple of years ago. Now, is he that guy still? Who knows? So we'll see where he lands. We'll see if he's any good when he gets there.
Yeah, I think sorry, Dan, my question to you guys, I guess, is it, because you look at Indy. I was pulling up their rushing play percentage, right? You'd think they're in the bottom. I mean, you got Wentz at quarterback, and that to me is the big problem with this whole offense. You saw this team function really well with a guy like Rivers last year. Like, they're still competitive. Obviously, the offensive line, the defensive line are a big factor, but with the offensive line there, with a guy like JT there and Hines to kind of bring that different dynamic, I would like to see them rushing the ball a bit more at this point, because obviously Wentz is not going to give them what they need to be competitive. That's if they even want to be, still competitive this year. I'm a Colts fan, and it hurts to watch this right now because, that division is wide open with what's happening, and they put up a fight against Tennessee, but you can't even beat Tennessee right now. That's not too promising.
I think it could also be a game flow thing. For Indy, that early schedule, like that Seattle game, the Tennessee game, the Rams game, I think that there's going to be opportunities where they could try to run it down people's throat a little bit more down the line. I think Jacksonville's coming up, Houston's coming up.
But are they going to ever have control of a game, Theo, where they can say, all right, let's just let JT run out the, you know what I mean? Like, I feel, I don't know.
It's a weird situation for JT right now. Because he's certainly not going to get the Derrick Henry role that we kind of needed him. If you're going to have a Nyheim Hines taking away the potential receptions, and Taylor started the year, he had a very good receiving game to start the year, and then they've kind of gone away from it. But Hines kind of takes away that receiving role for him. And Hines is a really talented player. Like Glenn said, Hines is a very useful fantasy player, but a real-life football player, I mean, he's explosive. He's a fantastic receiver. Coaches want to get the ball in his hands, so it kind of limits Taylor. So like you said, it's tough. If they don't have a lead, they can't really lean on Taylor. The defense is not shutting people down, and now Quentin Nelson is hurt. So it's a weird situation. I mean, I think right now Jonathan Taylor is a running back 2, and Nyheim Hines is a running back 3 or flex, and there's no real consistent receiver. I mean, I like Michael Pittman a lot, but it seems like week to week you can't really rely on him. So it's definitely a weird situation. And Marlon Mack, I think it would be interesting to see if he ended up in New England. I think Miami is a spot. Kansas City could use another running back. I think Darrell Williams they use because they trust him, but he certainly is not a very talented player. So I'd be interested to see where Marlon Mack ends up. I think he's got a little bit of good football left in him, and he could be the kind of guy that ends up somewhere, and it's just a real pain in the butt for fantasy because he could take away somebody's value, and he's an interesting player.
Yeah, I think as far as like what the Colts are doing with their running game, I mean, Hines is a special player. You do want to get him some touches, but Jonathan Taylor is also a special player. And you just don't want to get too far away from him. I really liked how they were feeding him some targets in the first game, and then they completely went away from that. And I think that's something they need to continue to do because, I mean, both of them can break a game pretty easily. And as Glenn said, if you have Nyheim Hines, you got to be feeling real good because Hines has outscored Taylor fantasy wise in most scoring systems right now. I don't necessarily know that will continue. I think Taylor is one of those guys who, once you start getting into November and December and defenses, have had a few injuries and, they're starting to run out some second and third string guys as their starters. A guy like Taylor trucking through them play after play after play. If Indianapolis is smart, they're going to be making use of that. But it's really tough to feel great about starting Taylor. But on the other hand, I mean, you pretty much have to, probably based on who you have at running back. I do like the idea of Marlon Mack in Kansas City. I mean, I think they could use a little bit of help there. I don't know how much he's got left after that surgery on the Achilles. That's a pretty tough one to come back from. But if you could find a good spot for him, Kansas City would probably be one of them.
Guys, we've spent way too much time. Like I said, I'm a Colts fan. I love my Colts, but guys, it's Marlon Mack. Like, you know what I'm saying? So let's just move along. Let's mosey along. Shout out to the chat is just rocking right now. Snoozy, Wheeler always in the house. One of the top rankers out there in fantasy land. ML rocking it. I saw Anna in there. Let's go to Marcus Lynch. A question for our guest Glenn. In the mains, I guess, for FFPC, do you have better luck? And actually, I think this is a great question. Just the dynamic of the waiver wire, obviously Wednesday approaching. Do you have better luck going after weekly cheap dart throws like a la Dan Williamson with the $1 to $3, like just listing guys and, you pick one up and he hits? Or do you want to go in there and just like unload on your Elijah Mitchell or maybe this year or this week, Chuba Hubbard, a fellow Canadian? What are your thoughts, Glenn, on the approach on the waiver wire?
I am definitely not the dump everything in for Elijah Mitchell after he explodes guy. I believe, everybody's got their style, and everybody, some of the most successful fantasy players I know, and some of the fantasy players I respect the most, dumped $700, $800, $900 on Elijah Mitchell that week, and I got it. I understood the reason behind it. It's just not the way I like to operate. I put my bids in, and for me, they were
so polite, Glenn. You're so polite.
I thought they were pretty high bids, for me. I thought I might win him here and there, but I want him nowhere. Where I want him? The week before, when I didn't see anybody else in there, and I saw him, and I'm like, he's better than what I got. Let me put $2 on him. And I won him in a couple spots there. And I also drafted him in the 19th, 20th round in a few drafts. Sir. Unfortunately, I dropped him in a few week one for the Goldman types and the Justin Jacksons. But you know what? I kept a few shares. And I've got in my teams probably 15% of Elijah Mitchell, but I didn't pay for him. I especially that early in the season, I like to have fab moving forward. There's just too much that can happen, especially in football. I mean, guys get hurt. Christian McCaffrey's go down. A.J. Brown's go down. And you need that fab to fill in that week or two or three. And then as you approach the playoff weeks, I like to have some fab to muscle up, to get that depth I might need, that second quarterback I might need, the whatever, the one player that breaks late. It's nice to have that extra fab to outbid everybody. And especially in FFPC, where the 4 playoff teams can actually bid during the playoff weeks. Nobody else can. It's you and 3 others. And when you have that hammer and somebody breaks week 13, week 14, that's a great feeling. That's a great feeling. You can have anybody. There's weeks I remember in the playoffs where I picked 3 guys and just took them. There was one year I saw a guy needed a quarterback. I took 4 quarterbacks off the board and just put it in there, and I won the league. I could do that because I had the fab left. So guys, I do like having fab.
Guys, you're not hearing that goodness anywhere right now. Smash the like, guys. Like, honestly, there's a question, I'm sure, especially on the FFPC. You're getting $1,000 to manage for the season. And like you said, Glenn, that's a huge factor, kind of considering and planning later on, being more patient and how much more value those dollars have when it's less teams bidding, right?
Absolutely.
Love
And
that.
I'll give-
Love that strategy talk.
I'll give Glenn some props because last year, when everybody was spending money week one, there was a running back who got good usage who people kind of ignored. And then you look at every single league you're in with Glenn, and he put $70 here, $80 here, $60 here. He ended up with Myles Gaskin on a bunch of teams last year. And
Nice.
the following week, when he was still on some waiver wires, you saw people having to go, 20% plus for him. And that's all she wrote. He was a very useful player. And this year, week one, Glenn added Cordero Patterson a week before most teams, spent a lot on Cordero. Glenn was adding him for cheap. Pretty much, I bet you have him in 20 teams right now, Glenn. So
Probably close, yeah.
yeah. So I'll give you props for that one. I said to Dan, Glenn added him everywhere. We're gonna go add Cordero for a couple bucks in the second waiver wire run. So I'll give you props on that one. So it's kind of under the radar waiver wire ads, especially early in the year, can sometimes be the most fruitful.
Absolutely. You mentioned Dan's $1, $2 darts. Okay. I don't really make a lot of $1, $2 darts here and there, but I make that $50, $60 dart for somebody like Cordero. That same week, sometimes they don't work. Sometimes you miss the board. I bid a lot, same amount on Roundtree. Those were the two guys. Those are the two guys I thought I could get relatively cheaply that had some upside. They both showed a little bit of something. Not enough for everybody to go crazy for them, but enough to make them intriguing. So I grab them for a decent amount, nothing crazy. Like you said, 40, 50, 60 bucks. And I got them in a lot of places. Cordero looks better. Roundtree looks worse. But, I'll take that. That between the two of them, I got 120 bucks, and I may have a very usable player for the rest of the season, hopefully.
Right, exactly. I mean, nobody's got a crystal ball, so it always pays to keep churning the bottom of the roster and keep looking for guys. I much prefer to get guys cheap like that, but sometimes if you feel like the spot is right, I don't have a problem unloading the clip on somebody, and that's where I kind of fall back on my dynasty background a little bit, and having seeing how these players go through the combine and, what they were doing in college and, what their utilization was and everything else. It gives me Elijah Mitchell. I was a little bit more confident probably just because, I knew what he was doing at Louisiana. I knew what kind of offense he was playing in there and how it was similar to San Francisco. And so, I was like, yeah, there's some things that are aligning here. And, Trey Sermon was somebody that I was just never very high on in Dynasty because, the guy got beat out by Ramondre Stevenson and he made Master Teague look pretty good at times. So, when I saw, okay, Sermon's not getting the run and Elijah Mitchell is, and like Glenn, I already had him in a few spots where I picked him up, during the draft in the 19th or 20th round. And then I just added him in some leagues where I really needed the running back help. I was like, yeah, I'm going to put, $700 on him. And if I get him, I get him. If I don't, I don't. Because I know I can make $300 work if I need to for the rest of the year.
I'd like to say something on what Dan just said, because I think that's an excellent point and something that I've thought about a lot, the dynasty factor. I think I agree with that a lot, at least for myself. I play some dynasty leagues. I'm not, across the board dynasty player. I know some people that's all they play, or the vast majority that they play, but I have a few. And I think it definitely helps me get an insight on those younger players that, maybe some other players who play strictly redraft, and these guys are off the radar for redraft, especially early in the season or in camp. Everybody's on the radar in Dynasty. So you're constantly looking at these players, these 5th, 6th, 7th round picks that have no hype whatsoever. Like Elijah Mitchell, same thing. It was my Dynasty experience with him and diving deep on him for Dynasty for that 6th, 7th round rookie pick that put him on my radar for redraft as well. When that opportunity broke because of, it was Wilson first getting hurt, I was looking at Mitchell as much as I was Sermon. And Sermon was going in the 6th, 7th round, while Mitchell was going in the 19th, 20th round. And that helped make that a little bit more affordable for me. But he would have never been on my radar if not for my dynasty experience. So I think that's an excellent point.
You just to finish off, one thing you said, Glenn, too, is just chasing. It's kind of like stocks and investments. You don't want to be chasing what's already popped. You know what I mean? And I think that's a very good point too. And you see that a lot in the FFPC. That one undrafted receiver that goes off for whatever that 1 week, everybody unloads the following week, and he doesn't do anything for you. The rest of the season. So you got to be careful for that. And you talked about players trending in the right direction. Make sure that's what's happening, right?
Right, definitely.
Guys,
talking about value, just one more point on that. That goes for the draft as well. I mentioned earlier, I got a lot of Zeke because I was drafting him in the 1st round. And when he dropped to the 2nd round after the Thursday, I was all over it. If I'm willing to pay a 1st rounder, one game isn't going to change his value to me. So I'm definitely going to grab him in the 2nd. But there's a lot of people who chase players up. You have to have your point, at least in my opinion, you have to have your point where maybe that value isn't there anymore. A guy who was a great value in my mind in the 10th, 11th round, like Corey Davis, when he was going there, when he started trending up and getting in the 7th, 6th round, I started fading him a little bit more because I just didn't see that value I saw in the 10th round translated that high up. So value is a very important part of the way I look at drafts, free agency, and everything about fantasy football.
Just ton of goodness, guys. And another solid point there. Smash the like, guys, show your support. Make sure you subscribe. And we'll just throw it real quick. Guys, myffpc.com, they support the show. That's where, you play for the big money, 6 digits. We've had tons of their champs on here, including Glenn, talking about their strategies. Make sure you sign up, myffpc.com. If you're not already on there, just tag us at Goat District. We'll hook you up with a sign-up bonus. But make sure you're playing on that site, Best Ball, Dynasty, Redraft. They've got everything that you want to play, and the format is great. Customer service is on a whole other level. That's for shiz. As we move into the second half, Glenn, I'm going to give you an option because I keep seeing your shirt, the New York Jets, and I'm trying not to go in that direction. I'm gonna let you choose. We can either go Flash, Josh Gordon. People going to spew out their waiver wire money all over the table this week, or we could talk about your Jets. You decide which way.
Let's talk Flash. After the first 3 weeks, I'm not sure I want to talk. I'm going to represent. I'm going to wear the shirt. I don't need to talk about them anymore. But Flash is very interesting. Talking about blowing waiver wire, Fab. How many times, how many years, have we all blown some Fab money on Josh Gordon and what could have been? I'm sure some people are going to blow some Fab on him again this year. I'm not sure I'm going to be one of them. The Kansas City factor certainly makes him more intriguing. Is there a landing spot and an opening, that he could have went to that would have gotten people more hyped about him? Probably not. So I'm curious how it's going to play out this week.
I expect to see some big bids on him. I think there's going to be some people that are a little bit irrational, and maybe he's got something left in the tank. I don't know, but he's just had so much problem with just keeping his head in the right place, and that's what's taking him down every time. And we don't know that that's any better. I certainly hope for his sake that it is, but as a just a fantasy manager, when I see Josh Gordon is reinstated to the league, it's basically, I treat it like that's Lucy holding the football and saying, "Come on, man, come up and kick this ball." I've had him pull the ball away from me too many times to really put a big kick into it anymore. What do you think, Theo?
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how it goes in Kansas City. If it was pretty much any other team, you might write it off, but the fact that they went out and got him when they're last place in the division, makes me think that Andy Reid maybe has a plan for him. The problem is he's going to cost you more than 10% of your fab because someone in your league is going to spend 10% fab on him. It's any high stakes league you're in, any home league you're in, someone is going to have dollar signs in their eyes with Josh Gordon, and they're going to think about Patrick Mahomes throwing him touchdown passes, and you're going to see a 10% bid. So I am not going to spend that much money on him. If it was a cheap guy, I'd love to see where it goes. The other issue is you're not going to know when to start him. So you might see kind of sporadic usage where maybe he does have a game where he has a touchdown, but most likely it's going to be on your bench. They've tried to get Mecole Hardman more involved. Kelsey and Hill are weekly guys, and then after that, it's a mix of wide receivers. So if anything, this just kind of shows you that if you were rostering a guy like Byron Pringle in a league like the NFFC, there's no reason to do so. You kind of move on. But I probably won't have any Gordon unless for some reason, a super cheap bid goes through.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I think if Kansas City's really going to solve their wide receiver problem, it's going to have to be through a trade before the deadline rather than, Josh Gordon or something like that.
Hey, Allen Robinson. Let's get him over.
There you go.
Oh, man.
But it's here's the question: is Kansas City really as great a landing spot as they seem? You got Pat Mahomes, which is amazing. Andy Reid, who's a great offensive coach. Yeah, you got those factors in. But they funnel their offense. It's Kelsey and Hill. Kelsey and Hill, and the rest of the team get the scraps. And I'm not sure that changes with Gordon. They've been very successful with that recipe. Super Bowls and runner-ups and a lot of wins. So I don't know. Even the landing spot is as great as it seems. So I'm probably like Theo. I'll throw a bid out there here and there, especially in places where I feel a little wide receiver thin, just for the upside. But you're pretty much stashing him and hoping it plays out. So we'll see.
Yeah, and that's an important point. You are stashing him, and it could be 2, 3, 4 weeks before you even see him hit the field. So if you're in you've got a team that's got Michael Gallup and AJ Brown and Sterling Shepard or something like that. I mean, you do not want to put Josh Gordon on that team because you're already compromised for depth with those guys, and adding another guy that you're waiting on. I mean, the bye weeks are coming here, and all of a sudden you're running a 16-person roster instead of a 20-person roster, and that's just not going to fly very well.
Yeah, I think the narrow target tree, Dan, that you've implanted in my brain now for the past few weeks it's the first thing that popped in my head when we talk about this KC offense, and we say it every week. For me, Gordon, it might just open it up for those narrow branches. You know what I mean? Like he might just take away some of that attention, play decoy. But history tells me that this is one I just don't mind missing on. The one thing I will say that, especially like something like the FFPC, your dynasty leagues, if you miss on your boy, if you do win the waiver, make sure you check who missed, and maybe you can get a nice trade in there and get some value and lock in that value for something that's a little more solid moving forward. All right, boys, Theo, man, what's on your mind these days with regards to, week 4? We're coming off of week 3, which, I don't know about you, but I went from a week 2 of a green board to a red board this past week. I think Dan and I got a pros versus Joes was the only green win I had on the FFPC.
So it was Christmas for me. It was green and red. So I think that's the best you can hope for week 3. But I'll go to a fun one. We were talking about Las Vegas in the pre-show. Let's talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. Derek Carr leads the NFL in yards, passing yards right now. Are we buying this Raiders offense? And what do we think about the 3 wide receivers, Ruggs, Edwards, and Chef Renfro? Is there a fantasy starter in the mix, or are they all kind of bench guys at this point? Start out with our guest.
Well, Carr, I remember I was in Vegas still for that Monday night football game, and the place was just crawling with Raiders fans. I mean, it was unbelievable. But I remember watching the early part of that game and thinking, "Damn, Carr sucks. he absolutely sucks. It's time to go to Mariota." I think I might have even tweeted it and got a ton of likes about it. But you know what? He's turned it around. He turned it around in that game, and he looked really, really good in the second half and won that game. And then, the last 2 weeks he's looked good as well. But a lot of it, I looked a little deeper in his stats. Not too much of his rates have changed. I mean, he's throwing a little bit more yards per pass, but everything else is pretty much the same. Even his touchdown percentage is a little down. He's really doing it all on volume. And, he's throwing 45 passes a game, on average, give or take a pass here and there. And that is a lot of passes. I mean, it reminds me a little of Stafford back a few years back when he was throwing everything. And he was a top 4 or 5 quarterback every year, but it was mostly on volume. The question you have to ask yourself, because Carr, he's not a huge playmaker in the Mahomes type. He's not a Mahomes type playmaker. He's more of a manager in my mind, and he's just throwing a lot. So will he continue throwing this much? I don't think so. I think when Jacobs comes back, when game scripts are a little bit different, it's going to go down. Now, I do like their receivers. I've got quite a bit of Edwards, as second half of draft plays, and a little bit of Ruggs. Not too much Renfro. I think he's a low upside, more of a floor type player. Not really my style of player, type of player that I usually shoot for. I think they have a lot of talent. Whether they're ready to explode, I don't know. If they keep going with this volume, they might. But I just don't see 45 passes a game for the rest of the year. I don't see 8,000 yards for him. I don't see, it's just not happening. So something's going to give. And the efficiency is pretty much the same.
So we're kind of selling that, is what you're saying. Like Superflex, you have Derek Carr right now. You're maybe selling that as opposed to thinking, okay, I got something long term here.
Well, we talked about Elijah Mitchell and buying him in Dynasty and selling him for the immediate profit. That's how you make profit. Sell high, buy low, right? And I don't think you can get Derek Carr much higher than he is now. Now, he's had good seasons before. He's had good half seasons before. I remember some MVP talk a few years ago. Maybe he's bouncing back to that. But he never struck me as that kind of a player. And I just don't see, maybe he's having a Rich Gannon late career, maybe. I just don't see it, and I don't believe in it.
Yeah, when Scooby and the gang capture him and pull off the mask, you kind of wonder if it's really Andy Dalton underneath there. So, but the thing is, here's the extent that I believe in Carr. I believe that his line is doing a better job pass blocking than run blocking, and I believe that that's how they're going to have to move the ball, is by throwing it. It does concern me that he seems to kind of start every game a little bit slow, and then he sort of turns it on as the game gets going. He's also had overtime to help him to bigger point totals in 2 of the 3 games. So you have to keep all those kind of things in mind as you're going through and figuring out how good is he. But he's certainly a guy that if you got him at the back end of your draft, or more likely picked him off the waiver wire for cheap, and you've got Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence or somebody like that. I mean, there's no question you're just throwing Carr in there, and you're going to keep throwing him in there until he proves you wrong.
Yeah, I'm actually going to take a different take than you guys. I'm kind of buying the Raiders this year. I think they're a little bit of a surprise offense, but I think that, like Glenn said, the wide receivers can play. And I think that they put a lot of emphasis into protecting Ruggs and Edwards in the preseason. They didn't play those guys at all, and you're seeing why. Ruggs has been really impressive to me. He's had 2 back-to-back big games with 7 targets each game. And Edwards looks like the kind of guy that's due for a really big game. He keeps flashing. That Monday night game, he nearly had the walk-off touchdown. He's had a couple of games where he's just flashed. And then Renfro, he's a boring player, but he's a very useful real-life third wide receiver, and we all know what Waller can do. And a stat that I actually saw from it was JJ Zachariason tweeted it. The Raiders have the second most deep shots of any team in the league right now, and of course overtime helps that out. But they're taking shots with these wide receivers. Things have opened up, and Josh Jacobs dealing with a lot of injuries, so I'm not sure. I think it's going to be a little bit more running back by committee with Jacobs handling the majority of the touches. But I think that the way that they're going to play in that division, they're going to be forced to have a few shootouts here. They got KC twice. They played well against KC last year. They have the Chargers twice. That's going to be shootout central. So I'm buying Derek Carr kind of finishing as a QB1, a low end one. And I'm buying the receivers all kind of being, values at where you drafted them in ADP.
Yeah, and I mean, with what you're saying, Theo, number 2 with the long bombs, that fits perfectly with a guy like Ruggs. And I feel like because of, I always go back to like when, you're doing your draft and you see like a New York Jet, no offense, Glenn, or like an Oakland Raider, Vegas. Like it's not as sexy, right, as seeing like a Tampa Bay Buck or an LA Rams. So that psychological game for me plays a factor, because especially like dynasty right now or redraft, I think those guys, the sample size is short enough for them to not be considered maybe where their value should be. And it allows opportunity for you to get ahead of the ball and maybe get on them before, the rest of fantasy kind of catches up with that offense, especially if you're like Theo and you believe in that offense. And that they will keep this going throughout the season and continue to grow as an offense.
Just as a team, I mean, you look at the way the Miami game went, they're down early. In previous Raiders teams would have folded, and they came back and won that game. So I think there's a little bit of good stuff happening with them this year, and I'm going to buy into it.
I like it. Glenn, we got to go back to the Jets, man. I just asked, I laugh because Dan and I mean, we drafted Wilson in a big money league. Obviously, he's like our third or fourth quarterback behind guys like Brady and Allen. But I'm curious. Obviously, you're a fan. You didn't just go golfing today, like maybe some of us did and happened to put that shirt on. But what are your thoughts on this offense? Like, are people being a little harsh 3 weeks in, 4 weeks in with this rookie quarterback? Are you kind of fed up as a Jets fan? Is there hope for people, or let the people know, from a Jets fan, how you feeling about this?
I think there's hope, but I think there's got to be some changes in the way they approach the game. The offensive coordinator is a rookie offensive coordinator as well, LaFleur. He's got some talent, but we talked about the problem with Justin Fields and Nagy and the scheming and the way they didn't scheme to his strengths. They actually schemed to his weaknesses. They're doing the same thing with the Jets. You got a rookie quarterback. He probably doesn't see the field as well as a veteran type. Give him quick hitters. Give him plays that are easy to see, that develop quickly. You've got a weak offensive line. Don't put him under pressure constantly. That's the way to ruin a young quarterback. We saw it with we spoke about Carr, his brother, many years ago, got sacked 8,000 times his rookie year. It was never the same. But you're putting these quarterbacks out there right away, very early in their careers. Some of them are very raw. You've got to make it successful for them. You've got to give them the taste of success. You don't want them jumpy. I'm already seeing that with Zach Wilson. He's backing up once he gets the snap, and I'm not your typical backing up, looking down the field. He's running away from the pass rush before the pass rush is even there, because he's feeling it. He's constantly under pressure. You can't have that with a rookie. They've got to scheme it a little different, and the same thing goes for Nagy.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair.
Yeah, the like Glenn, I live on Long Island. I'd really like to see the Jets kind of turn it around here. I think LaFleur's got to go, though. I think that they hired a young offensive coordinator. The guy is not putting his rookie quarterback in any opportunity to succeed. I know there's been some offensive line injuries, but sometimes you've got to just realize that the guy might not be the guy. He's a young guy, like you said, he's a rookie OC. I think that having a veteran offensive coordinator would be good for Wilson. I don't have a whole lot of faith in this guy. It seems kind of he seems kind of inept, Glenn. I'm a little worried about it.
I'm not going to argue with that, but it's, again, we're talking about 3 games, and coaches develop. Pete Carroll was a horrible coach for the Jets back in the 90s, and he ended up being both an NCAA champion coach and a Super Bowl champion coach. So coaches like players develop. Right now, LaFleur isn't giving me a lot of confidence, but I'm a patient guy. You have to be as a Jet fan. Very patient, but I want to see if he can adapt. Fourth game, 5th game, if he can start putting Zach in more successful positions, and create that success, he can learn also. And I don't think he's going anywhere anyway, because he's Salah's friend.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't think that's happening, but I'm very hopeful. He seems like a bright guy. You used the word inept. I'm not sure if I feel he's inept or just right now rigid. He's got his thought process and he doesn't want to shift off it. But maybe losing and the critique and the constant failure will force him to look at things a little bit differently and maybe try some things differently. At least I'm hoping.
Yeah, the same way it did with Nagy, right?
Yes, exactly. Only 4 years. Let's be patient.
Yeah, I don't know. Do the Jets have like any steadying influence in the offensive coaches at all? Like somebody who's been around the block a few times, or is it? I just don't know that much about the coaching staff.
I'm not really aware that they have that steadying hand. I do have a lot of faith in Salah. I don't know why. It might be my faith.
Yeah.
I really was happy with that hire, and I want to give it a lot of I want to say optimistic more than 3 games. It's very easy for being a Jet fan and being through the years and years and years of disappointment and failure and ineptness to give up so quickly. But I think Wilson is a talented quarterback. I think Salah has the opportunity to be very successful as well. And I want to see how this year goes. Listen, Vegas had us at 6 wins. We weren't going anywhere. We weren't going to the Super Bowl this year. So let's see how it develops. Let's see if it improves. We also suffered a lot of injuries. Of injuries. I mean, the whole NFL does, but some big-time players for us. Our left tackle.
Becton one was huge. I mean, that's huge for them.
It's a monster loss. And, Lawson also on the defensive side. Those are 2 huge losses right out of the gate. So, let's see how it goes the rest of the year.
All right, sounds good. What do you guys think about the New England running back situation? I know that's a little bit out of left field, but we did have some questions on it earlier in the chat, and it seems like things are kind of wide open right now. Glenn, do you have anybody that you're feeling strongly about there? Do you think Damian Harris has still got it? Do you think there's going to be some kind of a changing of the guard? I mean, with James White going down, that was actually kind of probably a bigger loss than what a lot of people might realize. So where are you at on that?
It's a huge loss. He's been a weapon for them for years. He opens up a lot of the offense, and he's a tough player to replace. And Damian Harris, it's bad timing as well because Damian Harris is having troubles himself. His snap count is going down, and the reason is they can't trust him. In any passing down, he doesn't pass protect well. He's not a receiving back type, and I think his snap count was down to 30-something% in the last game. That's a problem. But they do have a couple talented guys behind him as potential guys who may, take some of that snap share. I like Stevenson. I think he's a very talented back. He's a very talented runner. Now, he made a couple mistakes game one and got in the doghouse, and we know Belichick's doghouse. It's tough to get out. He puts the double locks, and you pretty much need a file to get out of there. But if he can and he gets an opportunity, I think at least as a pure running back, he can be as successful as anybody on that team. Whether he can handle the other aspects of the game, that still remains to be seen and is going to be a bigger factor than anything. I think J.J. Taylor has a chance because I think he may be able to handle some of that. He may be the guy who's most capable and whose skill set most matches up to James White and filling that hole. But, a lot remains to be seen. And they're looking at other guys off the street right now, too. I saw somebody post a list of like 10 players that they worked out today. So, we may not know who that player is quite yet, but it is definitely an interesting backfield to monitor.
Yeah, I think the Guild has the right idea here. We'll let Jonnu run the ball some. Just as a guy who probably owns way too much Jonnu. Any way we can get the ball into his hands about that. But I think, doesn't it seem like it's kind of coming down to who can succeed in pass pro there as to what's going to happen
everywhere though. That's everywhere, honestly. If so many people get caught up in a running skill set. Mm-hmm. And especially from a fantasy perspective, we see a guy break tackles and be elusive and run a 4.4, and we're like, how come this guy isn't playing anymore? Because every time he's in there and the quarterback drops back, he gets hammered. That's going to get you on the bench so fast because the number one player on every team, the most valuable asset is that quarterback. And if you can't protect, everybody wants Pollard to get more of the snap share in Dallas. I'll tell you why Zeke's never going to lose his snap share because he's a hell of a blocker. Mm-hmm. On those passing downs, Pollard may be great, when the ball is in his hands, but during those passing downs, when that back has to stay in the backfield, there's few as good as Zeke is picking up that blitz or that free runner at the quarterback. And when your quarterback makes $40 million a year and is your franchise like Dak is, or 90% of the quarterbacks out there are for their teams, you want them protected. And that's an important role for the running back.
And that's an easy way to kind of pick those rookies out, right? Coming into the season, if you hear kind of in the headlines or those, obviously some stuff is noise in the off season, but you hear of a young running back coming in and being able to protect. He's definitely going to get a bit of an edge over the other rookies for opportunity, and that's what you're looking for at the running back position.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think New England, it's a little bit of a mess. I'm like Glenn. I have some Stevenson. I'd love to see him get an opportunity. But I think that offense is going to be different than what maybe we thought. They kind of got away from the two tight end sets too, and they went with Brandon Bolden. So it was like a completely out of left field game plan. After week one, we all felt great about Damian Harris, but they certainly seem to be going away from him. So,
but is this new? I mean, Brady's not there anymore, but this is New England. This is Belichick. Is this anything new?
No, it's never safe streets with the running backs with Belichick. Besides James White, who always kind of had his role. So, yeah, it's interesting. It would be kind of one of those things where it's a wait and see, but I'm not sure which way it's going to go for the New England backs at this point. Hopeful for Stevenson, but you're not going to just get better at pass pro. So Belichick might just completely bury Damian Harris. That might be a guy that you just can't use and can't trust. Snaps wise, he had 20 snaps or something the other day. So that's not good. And they also went with a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. It seems like they want to, pass the ball and use their 3 wide receivers now, which, none of us would have really thought in the preseason.
Theo, come on, man. They got Jacoby Myers. They got Aguilar. Come on, man. This is
Aguilar
like
and Kendrick Bourne. They're on the field the entire game. So.
I forgot about Kendrick Bourne. Sorry.
Yeah, and Kendrick Bourne. So it's definitely an offense in flux, and it's tough to trust your Jonnu shares. He wasn't on the field much. It's tough to trust your Hunter Henrys. There might not be a New England skill position player you'd really want to start this week besides Myers.
Guys, I gotta cut in. First, we gotta answer the question, and I can't even believe we didn't talk about Barber when we talked about Vegas. Waivers are coming up. FFPC. We talked about unloading the gun. That tomorrow night on the FFPC, there's going to be all kinds of unloading, whether you're, Jacobs owners or not. Let's talk about that, and let's answer our boy Shrikant Reddy. Deep League 1 PPR, 0.2 PPC, like any from JJ Taylor, Gio Barber off waivers as a stash. Glenn, I got to go to you first as our guest. 2 questions for you there.
JJ Barber or Peyton Barber? We talked a little bit about, before we went on the air about the fact that some of us were doing waiver wires. I'm not going to lie that they're on a couple of my stacks there. Listen, it depends. It depends on your team in construct. If, let's say, you've got a 0 running back type team, or, you drafted Cam Akers or CMC, and you don't have a lot of running back depth, and you need a starter this week, or some immediate depth, you're going to go for Barber. He's a guy who can put points up for you right away. JJ Taylor, to me, he's more of a stash type player. You're going to put him on your bench. You're going to see how it plays out for a week or 2. It all depends on the team you're looking at.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, and the thing is with JJ Taylor, I mean, he's kind of the cheap home run. Gio's the guy that, if Tampa gets in a bad game script, he's probably going to get used, but he's also dinged up right now. And, Barber's that guy that just, I maybe he's this year's Gus Edwards or something. I don't know. But you do have to think that Barber's probably got a pretty short shelf life as long as Josh Jacobs can come back relatively quickly.
Yeah, it's Barber for me of these guys, but I mean, he got 23 carries last game, and Jacobs will be back, but the chances of him getting re-injured are there. And Gruden loves Peyton Barber. He talked him up when they got him. We all thought it was going to be Kenyon Drake getting a full load, and Gruden stressed that we're excited to see Barber. It wasn't coach speak. He actually played him, and then last week he gave him 23 carries. The guy's 27. Ron Rivera also really liked Peyton Barber when he was in Washington. These coaches just have a soft spot for Barber for whatever reason. So, the guy might be a jag, but 23 carries is 23 carries. I think if you can get Peyton Barber for super cheap because people think Jacobs is going to be back, go ahead and grab Barber and see what happens.
If anyone's wondering what that ping is, every time that bell goes off, Glenn won another league. That's just him taking down another league.
There you go.
But, guys, smash the like right now. Smash the subscribe. Glenn, I completely forgot. I do this often because I'm just, distracted. But do you have like a hard out? Do you have a curfew? Anything? Because we might keep you here for, another.
No, but the bell was actually me calling for my charger because this battery's going down.
Okay, there you go.
There we go. All right. So we'll kind of speed this up a bit. We'll do a quick OTC. Dan threw this on because, of course, one of his boys, actually a favorite of the channel. of course, Dan kind of pushed them into the channel for sure initially. But Robbie Anderson, Terrace Marshall, we'll go to our guest first, and then we'll go around, talking Carolina, which receiver you prefer rest of the season.
Oh, Robbie Anderson. Oh, my God, he's killing me. I've got him in a couple spots, a couple bigs. I don't have him really a lot, but the spots I have him seem to be big. And, it's mind-boggling to me how he's not being utilized at all. Listen, DJ Moore is better than Robbie Anderson. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. He should be the number one receiver. He should get the most volume. But you're going to open up the rest of the offense if you utilize some more of the offense. 1 target, 2 targets. Robbie Anderson's better than that. He should be utilized. Now, Terrace Marshall, he's a hell of a player. He's a hell of a talent. I grabbed him in a lot. We talked about Dynasty. He was a major target of mine. And I think he's going to be better than Robbie Anderson at some point, whether it's this year or next year. It's hard to say, but I think he's got tremendous upside. He could take over this year, but I think right now, if I had to put my name on it, my money on it, I'm taking Robbie. Redrafts right now, I'm still taking Robbie Anderson over Terrace Marshall.
Eggplant emoji over Dan's face when you were talking Marshall there. But Theo, as I go to you with this question, does McCaffrey being gone, obviously Dan Arnold being a Hall of Fame, potential tight end leaving Carolina? I'm just kidding, of course. But do you think anything opens up for Terrace Marshall, or do you still prefer Anderson moving forward?
I think that, with McCaffrey out, they're going to have to take some more shots downfield. So I love Terrace Marshall as well, but I'll go Robbie Anderson rest of the season over Terrace. Dan?
All right. So as a guy who, I kind of tried to backdoor Carolina a lot by, instead of taking DJ Moore early, taking Robbie Anderson and Terrace Marshall both later. Either one on a lot of my teams is going to be fine. Just pick one, please. But when it comes down to it, I mean, Darnold's been looking at Marshall more than Anderson, and especially on 3rd and 4th down, he's been looking his way more. And I think there's something to that. And, so I do expect Robbie Anderson to bounce back. But right now, I would rather probably, if I could only roster one of them, I would rather probably roster Terrace right now, because I think he's up and coming, and but again, I just don't think DJ Moore can hang on to this level of volume that he's been getting right now. I think Robbie's probably going to get some of that. Terrace is probably going to get some of that. And especially with CMC out and with Dan Arnold getting traded, I think this is going to add volume for both of those guys. So, I think they're both worth holding on to and just kind of see what happens.
All right. I'm going to make this the last one, because obviously Glenn has, a couple or 70 rosters to manage and stuff. And he's, every time that bell goes, he's obviously winning a league. So, the man's busy, man. So we appreciate, by the way, guys, smash the like, because the goodness that this man has brought tonight, is I hope you guys had a pen and paper, typewriter or something, take notes there. But guys, I'm going to just man the ship right now. And there's 2 receivers coming into the season. Dan, I know one of these guys you were huge on, as many of us were. Calvin Ridley, Stephon Diggs. Glenn, are you worried? Like, these are high equity, big investment pieces for your army going into the season, and they kind of shriveled up. So, like, how are you feeling about these guys moving forward?
You know what? We said many times during the show, it's early. I have very little worry that Diggs will come through. He's Allen's top target. He's proven it year after year. 2 teams. He's an incredible talent. He's a high volume receiver. He's an explosive player. I'm very confident that things will take off for him eventually. Allen struggled a little bit the first couple of games. Also, he started to find his groove a little bit more week 3. I think it's wheels up. Diggs is going to be fine. Ridley, Ridley got a tremendous amount of hype in the preseason. People were talking about him wide receiver 1. He's going to explode. I wasn't quite as confident in him. I had him in that, wide receiver 4 or 5 range, still very, very high, probably right after Hopkins. I had Hopkins slightly above him, but somewhere along in the preseason, he passed Hopkins, left him for dust. Metcalf left him for dust. Started in some drafts being taken before Diggs. I thought the hype on him got a little bit out of control, only because to me he hadn't proven that level yet. And I know we have to forecast and we have to look, but again, I saw some things with the Atlanta offense I wasn't that confident about, including their head coach. We talked about coaches plenty, in this show. Arthur Smith, is a Tennessee offensive coordinator last year, right? And he's from more of a running game kind of background. And I was a little also concerned, with the focus on Ridley. Sometimes that number 2 guy doesn't quite translate as well to a number 1 guy. We saw that with Juju a couple of years ago. So I liked Ridley. Again, wide receiver 5, still very, very high. But I did have a slight doubt. So I'm not as confident that he turns it around with that offense, with Ryan regressing a little bit, with the running game not quite as strong, with the Arthur Smith. There's just a lot of little red flags that make me a little hesitant. I do have a share or 2 of Ridley because I wanted a share or 2 of Ridley. But, I'm hoping that he turns it around for those shares, but I'm not as confident as I am when it comes to Diggs.
I agree with Glenn. I think that Diggs is everything you want to see is there with Diggs. The routes run, the target share. I mean, he's an alpha with one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I think the one possible thing that could hold Diggs down a little bit is I think Allen is actually getting better and more confident. He's spreading the ball around. I mean, Dawson Knox is a tight end 1 right now. Beasley looks good. Sanders looks good. But Diggs will have some smash games. I mean, I wouldn't worry at all. With Ridley, I do have some Ridley, and I think Matt Ryan kind of looks like toast. So I think it comes down to the quarterbacks for me. They're both alpha type wide receivers. One is next to an MVP candidate, and one is next to a guy who looks kind of washed. So I have much more confidence with Diggs, returning value where he was drafted than Ridley. Ridley could end up being a wide receiver 1 on volume, but the absolute smash games are not going to be there. But you'll get the double-digit targets every week, so he'll definitely return some value there. What do you think, Dan?
Well, I mean, Ridley's going to be probably okay. Diggs is going to be just fine. Between the two, Diggs is on an offense that scores touchdowns, and Ridley is on an offense that just is struggling to do anything right now. And they're not pushing the ball down the field. They've got a new offensive coordinator, or new head coach, I should say. So there's a lot of change going on. I wouldn't get too impatient with Ridley, because I think, some of this stuff may just, work out, and Arthur Smith is going to get things figured out. Matt Ryan's going to get Arthur Smith's offense figured out, and, a lot of things like that. But Diggs, I think, he's got a huge game coming soon. So I'm way bullish on Diggs.
Yeah, for me, it's simple, guys. We talk about investing, crypto charts, these top end receivers, and Glenn nailed it. Whether it's Ridley, top 5, DK coming into the season as a top 2 or 3. Jefferson is a top 2 or 3. When you have a guy that's hit the top of the mountain, and maybe, you know, doesn't necessarily have the history to back it, for me, you can sell and then rebuy at a lower price. And we've seen it with AJ Brown. We've seen it Justin Jefferson. We've seen it DK Metcalf this year. People get antsy, man, you know, with especially expensive pieces. So I feel like Ridley was a guy you could have sold. Maybe you buy if you're not competing this year because of the Ryan factor. Diggs for me is a buy. And anytime you can get a guy, especially in the top 5, offense, passing the ball, guy like Allen just blooming out there. Yeah, he's going to spread the ball more. And then, you know, obviously Emmanuel Sanders was a favorite of mine, you know, waiver wire and just adding late in those drafts just because of what he's bringing to the table. People forget how good that guy is as a receiver. Beasley's still there. Knox is you know, starting to bloom there. So obviously he's going to spread the ball more, but Diggs is definitely his crush, his favorite, you know, his main man. So I think as we go through the season, you're going to see that maybe that target tree narrow a bit more in Buffalo as the season goes. And look, even if it keeps nice and wide as a target tree, there's enough there as we see volume wise for a guy like Diggs to just kind of give you the numbers you expected and take advantage of maybe a lower first 3 weeks. Glenn, you've been awesome tonight, man. Other than the Jets golf shirt, I'm kidding, man. I'm totally joking. I'm just teasing because I got nothing else to tease you about. Brother, you're just crushing leagues on the regular. We appreciate you crushing the goodness tonight. Remind the people where they can find the Glenneration X goodness out there on Twitter. Anything else you want to share, man, before we close this out?
Nothing. I had a great time. I love talking fantasy football. I enjoy talking it with you guys, and I want to wish you guys luck and luck to anybody out there listening. And let's have some fun the rest of the season. We
appreciate you, Glenn. Guys, before I pass to Dan and Theo, before we do our usual exits, obviously Fantasyland with a heavy heart, and the district is no different. Mike Tagliere was on our show a couple years ago. I have shivers just talking about it right now. I always, anytime his name came up to me, I would throw out there that he was my favorite analyst. And one of the reasons was just his honesty. I remember a few years ago listening to him and talking about just telling everybody, guys, I'm going to step up my game. I'm going to become a full-time analyst, like just throwing it all on the table and telling people what he was planning to do. And he just did it. He just did it. He was passionate about it. And he was very positive. And that's one thing that I really appreciate, people who are very positive, because there's a lot of negativity out there, guys. We see it on the regular. And I'm not a big fan of anything negative, guys. We do this for fun. We play this because it's fun. It distracts you from everything else in your life. So, you know, cherish that. Cherish your loved ones. Obviously, Mike, you know, I mean, the man speaks for himself. He was just an all-around good dude. You see just from the support he got, the GoFundMe was just everything. Everything was, I think that his legacy is definitely, that he left behind is in good shape. Thoughts and prayers to his family. Feel very bad for them. Dan, you were on when he came on. Anything to add to that? It's obviously a very sad and unexpected moment.
Yeah, unfortunately, actually, I did miss that episode. I think you had to have Nate or Randy fill in that week because I was out, and it just really makes me sad now that I did miss my chance to talk to him. But yeah, I mean, the main thing is just, you never know what's going to happen. I mean, even if you do everything right, I mean, this disease is just, it's awful, and it hits everybody differently, and you don't know, there's nothing you can do to, other than just put the odds in your favor as best as you possibly can. So whatever that means to you, try to put the odds in your favor as best as you can, whether that's masks, vaccine, all of the above, avoiding people, whatever. But, just keep in mind that, everything can go away pretty quick, and, enjoy the family, enjoy the loved ones, enjoy the people that you enjoy being around, and and just cherish that time. That's all I can say on that. So, but sad deal, and we hope that we don't see it happen to anybody else.
Theo, anything to add, brother, before we close this out?
No, I mean, it was horrible. I mean, it's such a small community. We all take it very seriously, but when something like this happens, it's, even if you don't know the person, you definitely feel it. Fantasy football, you seem to kind of know everybody, and who they are, and everybody listened to him on podcasts and appreciated his work, and you can kind of tell about what a great person he was based on some of the reactions people are having this week. And obviously the GoFundMe was crazy. I mean, when it first opened up, they hit their goal in like an hour, and I think it's 5 times over. So, he definitely meant a lot to a lot of people, and it's very sad to see him go.
Rest in peace, Mike Tagliere, also known as Tags.